Okay, so now we're going to look at this idea of placing the nervous system into categories. And so what that means, we're going to take parts of the nervous system, and in each category, those different parts are going to have some sort of similarity. But the individual things inside of each category might have their own unique differences. So for everything, you should be asking yourself, how are these things similar and how are they different? Okay, so I'd like to move to a couple of slides here. And so first I'd like to talk about how we divide up the nervous system, place it into categories based on the location in the body. Okay, so the first category that we're going to look at is what's called the CNS, which stands for Central Nervous System. And here you can see it's the brain and the spinal cord. And those are the two parts of the central nervous system. So if it's in the brain or the spinal cord, then it's central nervous system. The other division is PNS, the peripheral nervous system. And this is going to consist of your nerves and your ganglia. And so if you're following along in your notes, here is the part where it's talking about the divisions based on location. And so for central nervous system, it's going to be the brain and the spinal cord. And then peripheral nervous system, we're talking about nerves and ganglia. Now, if you don't know what ganglia are yet, that's okay. Don't worry about it right now. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. Okay, so that's how you divide things based on location, but now let's talk about how you divide things based on function. So what it's doing. Now let's remind ourselves of this overall picture. We've got sensation coming in, processing by the inner neurons in the brain and spinal cord, and then motor commands going out that cause a response. So, a sensory neuron brings that information on sensation in, and the motor neuron takes that command out that causes the response. So these are the two divisions, sensory division and a motor division. Now there's actually a really great image. It's from your textbook on page 387. But it's also found in your homework here. And this is again showing the divisions based on, there is function here with the arrows, okay? And so the sensory information is all of the parts here, and the motor is all of the parts here. Now notice that we can subdivide. Notice there's 3 different branches of this sensory information, and that is going to be based on what type of sensation is coming in. So if it's smell, taste, vision, balance, hearing, that means it's part of the special sensory division. If it's coming from your internal organs, like the twist of intestines, then that's part of the visceral sensory division. And if it's coming from your skeletal muscles, your joints, your skin surface, then that's going to be somatic sensory division. Okay, so depending on the type of information and where it's coming from, puts it into a different subdivision of sensation. Okay, so let's go back here to our notes packet and down a little bit. And let's see here, the nervous system is divided into 2 major divisions based on function. And so one is called afferent, and what's happening there is that sensory information is delivered to the central nervous system for processing. So that's the afferent division, brings things in to the brain and spinal cord. The other division is the efferent division, and I always think E for exit because motor commands move from the CNS to out to the effectors. Okay, so afferent brings information in, efferent takes motor command information out. Okay, and then right here, this is parts of the afferent nervous system. So this is all sensory division. Okay, and you should be able to look right here and put what sensation is coming in and where is it coming in from. Okay, so these two are showing where it's coming in from. So we've got so let's do a couple of these just to get you on a good start. So it tells you in the figure that the skeletal muscles, the joints, and the skin surface is the location where the stimulus is felt. Well, let's talk about the skin. The type of stimulus. What types of stimulus come from the skin? Well, touch, temperature, pressure. Okay, so these are some. Now this is a point where students often get a little bit confused because skeletal muscles, you usually think of the motor side, what they're doing, they're contracting. But that's not what we're talking about here. Here we're talking about sensory. So what things do our skeletal muscles sense? And the big thing that they're going to sense is position in space. They're going to sense their own movement. Okay? And so those are the sensations that are coming in. How much they're stretched. That's going to be another sensation that could be coming in. Okay? So these are the location, but this is the type of stimulus that's felt. Okay. Another example on this figure here, well, it tells you smell, taste, vision. Well, is that a location or is that the type of stimulus? Hopefully you said that's the type of stimulus. Smell is a type of stimulus, but where is the location that senses smell? Well, that's going to be your nose. Okay. So I'm going to let you go through and try and complete filling in this chart, but I've done the first couple of things for you to help you understand what I'm looking for. Okay. All right. So let's keep moving through here. So these are the different types of sensations that can come in. One thing that I want to talk about is that we're going to have specific receptors that are going to pick up these sensations. Okay? And so there's going to be 3 types of receptors. Intero receptor. We're going to have an extero receptor. And then we're going to have a proprio receptor. Okay? So, interoreceptors, they're going to sense everything on the inside. Okay? So, sensations coming from your internal organs. And I want you to think about and read about what are those sensations that your internal organs might feel. Okay? Exteroreceptors are going to sense things from the outside. So what are things that we sense that are happening in our outside environment? And I'll give you a hint. One would be temperature, right? There's others. I want you to think about what those are. And then this last one is kind of a unique one, okay? And this is sensing the position of the muscles and joints in space. So are they pointed up? Are they pointed down? Are they sideways? This is what helps us know where we are relative to the ground. And then also it's going to sense movement of muscles and joints. Okay, so these are proprioceptors, and that's kind of a unique category. Okay, and so now what I'd like to look at is we've gone through this sensory division. Now I'd like to look at the motor division. Okay, and you may notice that there's two subdivisions within the motor division, and each of these subdivisions is based on what are the effectors. So if the effectors are skeletal muscle, and those are the muscles that you can choose to control, and if they are, then you are part of the somatic nervous system, and that is the only thing that is responding. Okay. But if your effectors are smooth muscle, that's the muscle that you can't control, and it's going to line a lot of the tubing in your body, so you'll find it around your blood vessels. It's going to be around the outside of your intestines, and whenever it contracts, it helps move things along the intestines. It's around your air passageways, and so it can make those smaller or larger as it contracts. So smooth muscle, you can't voluntarily control it in most usual circumstances. Cardiac muscle, that's your heart muscle. Glands, so for example, sweat glands. Adipose tissue is your fat tissue. So if any of these are the things that are responding, then you're part of the autonomic nervous system. And we'll talk in a minute about the difference between parasympathetic and sympathetic. Okay. But these are motor commands. These are the different divisions and what belongs there. So if you're following along on your class notes, then let's go ahead and fill out this chart right here. So somatic nervous system, the types of effectors, well, we only have one type, skeletal muscle. Okay, and what do skeletal muscles do? Well, they contract. And when they contract, they move your bones. Are these responsors ever voluntary? Meaning, can you ever control skeletal muscle? And yes, you can. You can choose to control it. Now, the autonomic nervous system, again, we said that our effectors, the things that are responding, are either smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, or glands. And we're going to put here, there's two different divisions. So parasympathetic, these things are responding. Sympathetic is all of the above, plus we're going to add in adipose tissue or fat tissue. Okay. So in general, we're going to call the parasympathetic the rest and digest system, while the sympathetic division is going to be fight or flight division. Okay. What does that mean? Well, for example, the sympathetic, once I was out jogging, and I went by this house, and this woman had her dog out next to her while she was doing yard work, and all of a sudden the dog decided I was a threat jogging by, and so that dog started coming at me, barking, growling, teeth were bared. And so my response to this stimuli was, for example, my cardiac muscle, my heart muscle, started beating very fast out of my chest. And what was it doing? Well, it was getting me ready to either fight that little dog or run away, fly away. What I ended up doing was I actually ended up running away, jumping up on the hood of the car. And so, but the response of my cardiac muscle helped me do that. The sympathetic nervous system increased it. Okay. Now the opposite would be if you ate a big meal and you're feeling kind of sleepy and you go sit in your chair, and so your body's digesting your food, your heart rate gets low, and so in that case that would be a rest and digest response. So generally parasympathetic, sympathetic work on mostly the same effectors. There's one exception. Mostly the same effectors, but their effects are often opposite of each other. Now, can I, with the power of my mind, just through thinking about it, cause my heart muscle to start beating faster like I would the muscles on my arm, my skeletal muscles? Answer is no, cannot. So these responses are not voluntary. They're not ones that we control. Okay, and so I believe that that is the organization of the nervous system. Again, we've talked about organization based on location, which is going to be central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. And then we've talked about all of these functional divisions right here.